3 years ago, I was in a 9 to 5 job in my local hometown, thinking about how I can achieve the goals that I had. I was desperate to create an income stream that was online, that would come in no matter where I was in the world, so I had the location freedom that I was after. I also wanted to break the chains of the 9 to 5 job that I was in, and I wanted to be able to choose how I spent my day, so I had the time freedom that I was desperate for. And finally, I wanted to have the finances to allow me to do what I wanted whenever I wanted, and not be stuck on the corporate ladder that was never going to get me to the finances that I wanted to have. I was banging my head against the table because I didn't know how following the path that was set out to me and following a 9 to 5 would ever get me to the freedom and the success that I desired. About 3 years ago, I started researching online businesses to find out how could I achieve the success that I was looking for. I came across various different business models, but the one that seemed to stick was dropshipping. I came across it and it seemed to tick so many boxes. It was a business that I could run from anywhere. I could scale it dramatically, and I could run it all from a laptop, allowing me to be anywhere in the world and continue to generate a large income. So on that day, about 3 years ago, I decided this was going to be the way that I was going to achieve the success that I was after in my life. Now, 3 years on, and I've been dropshipping with my businesses consistently now for 3 years ever since that day. I can tell you exactly what my results have been. If you're new to the channel, my name is James Eardley. I teach people on my YouTube channel how to make money online, and in this video I'm going to break down all of the highs and lows of the journey that I've had with dropshipping over the last 3 years to shortcut your success in the world of online business and dropshipping. So firstly, I'll set the scene. It was 2020 and I was put on the furlough scheme because of all the events that were going on in that year. And I had time on my hands, and I started to think about where was I going with that 9 to 5 job that I was in at the time. I looked around at the people around me that were 10, 20 years ahead of me, and I knew for a fact that I didn't want to be in that position. It wasn't how I saw my life going. I wanted to break free from a 9 to 5 job that I felt trapped in, and I wasn't able to spend my time in the way that I wanted to. So I knew I had to think about a different way of generating money if I was going to achieve the goals that I was after. So the first place you look when you have these ideas is on YouTube. Certainly was for me. And I started to find out the different models that people were using to generate an online income stream. At the time, when I stumbled upon dropshipping, the advice out there was about working on AliExpress, finding products that were being held in China, and then marketing those to a US or a UK audience through Facebook ads, where you'd create videos to show off the products, and then as soon as somebody purchased from your Facebook ad, you would then order the product from AliExpress, and 3 to 4 weeks later, that product would arrive from China to your customers. The model I was promised was that you could scale this because the products were cheap. You could mass scale the amount of people that were buying these products. And so I started to find products on AliExpress that I believe would be winners. I set up my Shopify store and I turned on the Facebook ads. After a week or 2 weeks, it was very clear that this model was not working in the way that I expected it to. The products I was selling, I hadn't chosen with any sort of data behind. It was just products that I knew fit into the model, where I could buy them from AliExpress for about £20 and sell them on Facebook for £30 to £40. I was so naive, and I turned on my Facebook ad campaign, dialed it right up to a budget of around £20 per day. And before I knew it, the sales that I was getting back was nowhere near the amount of sales I needed to run a profitable business that would generate the income stream that I was after. I got the dopamine rush of the few Shopify sales, but it was never enough for me to cover the ad spend. And so I had to learn a lot of lessons, and a lot of lessons quickly. So this might happen to you as well. When you first get started, you've got all of the encouragement that you need. You've got so much energy, but because you've got so much to learn, you put that energy sometimes in a misguided place. I certainly did that. And I was running ads to products that were so poor quality that I knew it would never work. I was getting comments on my Facebook ads telling me about the fact that people could see straight through the quality of the products that I was selling. They knew it was straight from China, that people could buy them from AliExpress, and yet I thought I could sell them with a funny Facebook video, then that would be the way I'd make my millions. It was not the case. I made a big loss in terms of finances, but it was a big win in terms of learning about the type of businesses, the type of dropshipping that I wanted to do long term. I had my head in my hands and I realized that this was not going to work out the way I thought it was. So I had to rethink the type of business that I wanted to run. At that point, I felt like a failure, like I couldn't start an online business. And perhaps you've had some failures of your own and it didn't work out the way you thought it would when you first started. But the best thing I could do was think about it as a learning lesson and think about how I could change the model so it would work, and so I would take those lessons and they wouldn't all be in vain. So this takes me a few months into my journey, and I realized that instead of selling cheap products with poor quality from China, the way I wanted to run a business was with products that I could stand behind, that I felt confident in the quality. I wanted to work with suppliers that would help me instead of be difficult to communicate with. And I wanted to be able to create a brand that I could stand behind and be proud of. Things were adding up when I realized that there is a different way to run dropshipping businesses other than selling cheap products from China. That's when I came across a UK training program that explains to people and teaches people how to sell high ticket products to customers in the UK from UK suppliers. And this ticked so many boxes for me. Suddenly I realized that I'd be able to have real quality communication and relationships with suppliers in the UK, and I knew that my customers would receive high quality products. And in terms of finances, it made so much sense because selling high ticket products, that means you can sell products that are well over £300. You can make profits of over £100 with every order. All of my dreams came back alive because I realized that it would still tick the boxes in terms of running a business from anywhere in the world, but now the finances made sense and the relationship made sense. So I went full steam into setting up my business following that program. Following the Dropship Unlock program gave me the focus I needed to channel all my energy into a clear step-by-step method. So after the first 2 months of following that program, I had 4 suppliers signed, UK suppliers. I had 60 products on my site, and I was ready to start running Google ads to those products. After about 2 weeks of running ads, I made my first high ticket sale, and I still remember the time. It came through when I was at work, but I'd left my phone in my car and I was out of my car at the time. So I got back to my car, checked the notifications on my phone, which I was always checking to see if a sale had come through, and it was for over £1,000 for that first sale. And I realized that the proof was there, that I built a store that customers were able to spend over £1,000 and they were comfortable to do that with my business. And everything changed from that moment. I realized that now I can make sales for over £1,000. I was making profit of over £300 with every sale, and I did that while I was working on a different job. So without having to dedicate time to that person, to that customer, I was able to start making these sales no matter what I was doing and no matter where I was. Although I'd received sales for my previous dropshipping business, those sales were for £30 or £40, and they were never going to be life-changing. They were never going to create the income that I was after. But creating sales for over £1,000, knowing that I could scale that and do that from anywhere in the world, I was excited, I was hooked on that feeling, and I knew that this was the path that I was going to take. From there, I made sure to reinvest as much profit as possible from the business into scaling the operations of the business. So the profit I got, I reinvest into Google Ads to make more sales and then continue to reinvest. The first thing I did after a couple of months was pay for a theme with Shopify and work with developers to make my website 10 times better than it was. This was an investment because although I spent a few £100s to improve the website and spend some time working on it myself, that then got it over the edge in terms of that next level of conversion rate. And so I could get more profit from the business and reinvest that into other things that would continue to scale and grow the business. The best investments I made in the first year was reinvesting into my website with the profits that I generated and continually signing new UK suppliers every week. So I would get on the phone, even though my Shopify store was already making sales, I didn't rest with the suppliers I had, and I continued to add suppliers every week. The biggest difference that you can make to a dropshipping business is the quality of the suppliers that you have on your store. So if you continually add new suppliers, that was the way I could continue to scale and grow my business. So that was the biggest lessons from year one. After a year of starting, when I started the program, I generated about £250,000 worth of sales. And that had just come from scaling the Google ads while I had profit to reinvest back into the business. In the second year of growing my business, the focus changed. It was more about how could I now set this up and run it like a business. I read a book called The E-Myth Revisited, and it made me change the way I looked at my business completely. For the first year, I was very involved with the day-to-day. I was responding to customers, I was taking customer calls, and I was fulfilling the orders myself. But when it got to year 2, I realized the way that I could continue to scale the business was if I took a step back from the day-to-day operations and brought people in to do those day-to-day operations for the business. That's when I hired my first VA. When I had enough profit coming into the business that would cover a VA's wage twice, that was the moment I knew I had plenty to reinvest into a VA. And as soon as I did that, the revenue in the business tripled. From the moment that I had that VA on board, it allowed me to increase the ad budget because I knew that the orders that would come in would be fulfilled by somebody that was working on that full time. And it allowed me to focus on how I could improve the business in so many other areas. I also worked on creating processes for every single process in the business. And again, that allowed the business to run completely independent of me without me having to explain how to do something every time a new task came in. I recorded the process and the business started to run like a machine. In the second year of business, it generated more revenue, but that revenue was so different to acquire because now I could take a step back and I wasn't in the day-to-day running of the business. And that was a huge impact for me and my life. Those dreams I had about running the business from anywhere was suddenly true because I could go from anywhere as long as I had my laptop and I wasn't involved in the day-to-day operations. After I trained my first virtual assistant up to handle calls and fulfill orders, I could step back from the day-to-day operations and just focus on growing and scaling the business. In my third year of dropshipping with this brand, I really started to scale up operations. I brought on another virtual assistant to make sure there was always cover if the first virtual assistant was ever off. And the team now was able to handle all day-to-day activities without needing my direct involvement. We've now scaled the business to do over £300,000 of revenue so far in this calendar year, and we're going to be projecting to achieve around £550,000 in revenue over the course of a calendar year. This is all generated while I can do what I want with my time, and so the last year of my journey with dropshipping has now been to help out with the program that I followed to start with. So I'm now a client success coach with Dropship Unlocked, and that allows me to spend time teaching others how I was able to build my own dropshipping brand. The advice I have for anyone thinking about starting dropshipping is to fill yourself with knowledge before you start investing in any marketing campaigns. Make sure you're learning the right strategies and not just following any trend that you see on YouTube. The biggest lessons I learned on my journey was about following the right process and the right strategy. When you try and do something on your own or follow a trend that's going around at the time, it's so easy to be drawn into that and then not have the support and backing if you need to learn and when things don't go your way. So the best thing that I would recommend to people now is to equip yourself with the knowledge you need. And the easiest way to do that is actually a book that I'd recommend for you. And there's 2 books that I'd recommend. First of all, read the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and that will teach you about the ways that are out there today where you can generate money without having to work a 9-to-5 job. The second book I recommend is by Lewis Smith, who runs and founded Dropship Unlocked, and he has written a book exactly for people like myself and anyone else that wants to run a UK dropshipping business. He's gone through the exact step-by-step process that he follows and teaches for people to start a UK dropshipping business. If you want to check out that book, which I highly recommend, there is the first link in my description and you can get that book today. If you get a digital copy, you can pick that up and start reading it in 5 minutes. And in 5 minutes time, you'll have the step-by-step process in front of you. So you don't need to make the same mistakes that I made. So that's 3 years. There's been highs, lows, so many memories, lots of experiences, and importantly, a lot of learning along that way. And the lifestyle it allows me to live now is completely different to the one I had 3 years ago. So if you're thinking about starting an e-commerce business or dropshipping, then hopefully my story has given you something to think about. Hopefully you've enjoyed the candid look back through the last 3 years, and that's the exact story that I've been through over the last 3 years. So hopefully that's helpful for you. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And the next video that I'd recommend you watch is one where I talk about why dropshipping can be a path to freedom. So if you're really thinking about starting with dropshipping, then I'd recommend that video. You can click on the video on the screen now. So that's the next step for you. I hope you enjoyed.